introduce you to our second panel, which is on health, healing, and wellness. We have amazing panelists. And I also want to share that sitting in our audience, just really quickly, are a number of other healers and therapists. If you could do me a favor and stand up if you're a therapist and a health practitioner of any sort, that would be really amazing. That was for you all to see as well. So we have health practitioners, healers, and mental health workers in the audience. Leading our discussion today is Dr. Jeannie Celestial, who was also a mentor of mine years ago when we were in a program called Asian Sisters in Action in 1996. What? Dr. Jeannie Celestial is a licensed psychologist serving clients at Kaiser Medical Center Department of Mental Health in Vallejo, California. In 2013, she received the American Psychological Association Minority Fellowship for her commitment to cultural competency in the behavioral health services. Dr. Celestial strives to support people in managing thoughts and emotions and fostering healthier relationships. Her clinical interests include recovery from and personal growth after trauma, specifically post-traumatic growth, and coping with grief and depression. She's a second-generation Filipino-American, born in Guam and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. She enjoys spending time in nature with her family. Thank you, Dr. Celestial.
Thanks, Connie. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panelists today. We have Adelina Tansioko. She's a certified life coach and founder of Surrendered Healing. Adelina specializes in supporting women of color, LGBTQ identified persons, and other people from underrepresented communities stop living a life on autopilot and instead tap into their higher selves to create richer and more fulfilling lives. She can say more about her work on the panel. We also have Hamida Yusufzai. She has served with Bante Saray since 2016. She has also worked internationally as a community organizer, a rape crisis advocate, and a consultant for law enforcement. She has a global understanding of violence against women. She currently instructs a reality-based self-defense class in Oakland on her own time. She has over 15 years of experience working in youth organizing with system-impacted people of color. And she's an advocate for comprehensive services for commercial sex exploitation of children, CSEC, and contributes to the enhancement of intensive case management component used to address the economic and emotional needs of Southeast Asian young women and girls. And lastly but not leastly, we have Melissa Luke. She's a senior program manager at Asian Women's Home, the domestic violence and anti-human trafficking program of AAPI, Asian Americans for Community Involvement. AAPI provides mental health, and wellness services to individuals, families, and the Asian community. And the Asian Women's Home provides empowerment-based, trauma-informed, and culturally responsive support to survivors and their families. And we'll have Melissa share more about her work there. Before we get started on this panel, we would like to invite Adelina to lead us in a brief practice to help us tune back into our bodies and our minds to be present before this panel. Thank you, Adelina.
Testing. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and invite you all to stand up. I know you just had a break, and so we're just going to grounding your body and grounding your intention. So with your feet flat on the ground, your eyes closed, or a spot on the ground that you're staring at. Take 2 intentional deep breaths in through your nose and out through your nose. Deep breath in and out. In and out. Bring your attention now to your forehead, to the tip of your nose, to your ears, to your throat, to your elbows, the palms of your hands, the tips of your fingers, to your knees, to your feet. Feeling the energy from the top of your head all the way through your body, into your feet, down into Mother Earth, into the center. Feeling yourself grounded, grateful. Bring your attention now to your heart, your opening heart. What is it that brought you to this conference? What is it that brought you back to your chairs for this panel? What would you like to gain? What would you like to receive? What would you like to give? Now, answering the question silently to yourself, who do you need to be in order to gain, receive, or give that which you are called to give? Maybe it's a person of curiosity. Maybe it's a person who's open-minded. Maybe it's a person who's engaged. And make a silent commitment to yourself to be that person. Inviting in a gentle smile. Bring to mind one person that you're grateful for today. One person that, because of them, you are here standing right now. Smiling, opening your eyes, feeling grateful to be in this room. Such beautiful faces around you. Go ahead and look to the left, look to the right. Oh, that doesn't make sense. Look to each other, then look to the other person. And just silently thank each other for being here.
Wow, that was really powerful. Brief but powerful. It just shows the power of intention and presence. Thank you, Adelina. So I'm going to flip the script a little bit and I wanted to kind of start broadly and then hone in on leadership. You all are actively involved with facilitating wellness. And can you please tell us about your work and kind of the health issues that the people you serve deal with?
Hi, good afternoon. I work for Asian Health Services in Oakland, and I work for a program called Banti Sre. And I just want to acknowledge all of the people who are and have been based at the spot, which is where Banti Sre is housed. So please know who you are. Thank you. It feels so good to see your faces. Banti Sre is based at the spot, but collaborates with Youth Program and Asian Business Support Committee and Young Asian Women Against Violence in San Francisco. And it's a youth asset building project, working with young women and Asian women of Southeast Asian descent who have experienced sexual violence, sexual harassment, sex trafficking. And the health issues that impact this population are spiritual, physical, emotional, psychological, historical. And I would say that the program tries to address every part of the human being. And we do this through prevention education. And I don't want to go on to answer the next question, but the health impacts are historical, they're current, and they affect every part of the human. And being part of a community health center, we have a public health lens on sexual exploitation, which I would say is not typical, I would say, in Oakland and Alameda County and in the United States. It's typically a criminal justice lens. which is really about being able to prosecute perpetrators. But with the public health lens, it's about helping victims and survivors heal and maybe have a parallel justice that they might not find through the criminal justice system. Is that enough, or do you want to know more?
Can you just briefly just say, what is a typical day like for one of these young women in relation to some of the stresses that they face?
I'm going to buy my own mic now. If you can think about what it feels like to be poor, if you can think about what it feels like to have generations of poverty, if you can think about what it feels like to be impacted by all of the systems, white supremacy, patriarchy, misogyny, homophobia, what might it be like? If I think about one of the young girls that I know, they might wake up and not be able to have breakfast, or not have the kind of nutritious breakfast that a young person would need. And then to go to school and be cast aside because your English might not be good enough, or the teachers have decided that because you don't pass your tests, you're not someone they want to invest in. And then to leave school and maybe head towards the spot and be chased or harassed by men, catcalling, asking you if you want to have sex with them or if they can pay you to have sex, or just to be chased by a car with 4 men in it, and to run as quickly as you can to a place of safety, and then maybe to get to the spot and bump into me or someone else and try to hold all of that and to be there and present for the program or the workshop, and to contribute and to be, fully engaged. It's really difficult for a young person, it's difficult for a young woman, it's difficult for a young woman of colour, it's difficult for a young woman of colour who comes from a low-income family. And then for her to then, get home and actually go to sleep and have a good night's sleep. How can you sleep on an empty belly? How can you sleep when you have scenarios racing through your mind, what you could have said, what you should have done, how you could have defended yourself or the other person that was with you? And that's the low end of the spectrum. That's like a good day.
Excuse me. Yes, that was very descriptive. Thank you.
All right. So AAPI is, I would say we have 3 primary focuses. There's the primary care piece, behavioral health and wellness. And I know this morning we've talked a lot about representation, the importance of disaggregating data. So I'm really excited to share that that's a project that actually our county, Santa Clara County, did last year. So due to a lot of advocacy over the years, especially from local API communities, the Public Health Department actually did an API health assessment where they did disaggregate that mental health and wellness data. So I wanted to share some of that with you all because I know that this kind of information, especially in our community, is just so rare and so precious. So let's see. Okay. So I don't think this is going to be a surprise for anyone, but they found for APIs overall that communities have a hard time understanding the doctor and needing help and may delay care due to cost. APIs overall have higher rates of depression and youth sadness. Okay. If we look at specific communities, Chinese community, high senior poverty, elevated rates of poor general health, higher rate of death due to intentional self-harm. Filipinos, highest rates of preterm births, highest rates of adult binge drinking, highest rate of female breast cancer, high suicide ideation among youth, and high intimate partner violence or domestic violence. Indian. Higher low birth rate compared to other APIs, higher rates of breast cancer and prostate cancer, lower rates of adult checkups, elevated suicide rate. Japanese seniors have the highest rate of death due to unintentional falls, perhaps because they are living longer and alone. Korean community. High senior poverty, very low socioeconomic support, elevated depression rate, high rate of delayed care due to cost, high rates of needing help to understand the doctor, highest suicide rate among APIs. Pacific Islander. Highest rates of obesity, overweightness, highest rates youth smoking and alcohol use, highest suicide ideation, high intimate partner violence, lowest life expectancy. Vietnamese. Highest levels of senior poverty and child poverty, as well as highest rates of poor general health. So these were the public health findings upon doing surveys across our Santa Clara County community. They're now doing focus groups to get a sense of what this looks like in terms of lived experience and how to move forward with these findings. Potential barriers to seeking support for health and mental health problems, including stigma, sense of pride, inability to have difficult conversations, intergenerational barriers, language and cultural barriers, lack of knowledge about resources available. So, I will say when I read this, I had a lot of mixed emotions. I'm really excited that we have this information, that we know the gaps in our communities, and that it can help us to fill those gaps and give us a path forward. And at the same time, reading about this made me very, very depressed, to be honest. This actually re-traumatized me. So I guess after sharing all of that, the other piece I want to share is that the more I do this work, the more I feel like what I want to hear more of is the wellness piece, the healing piece. What are the strengths in our community that are allowing us to move forward? What are the diverse healing practices across all of our communities that we can share with each other? And so, if there's anyone that is doing that work that has that report, please let me know.
That was powerful. Thank you for sharing all of that. Ooh, just taking it all in. And so can you remind the question?
Can you describe the work that you do and what health issues your clients face?
I was thinking about how do I really describe the work that I do in one sentence. And so I'm going to say more than one sentence, but for the first sentence being a quote from Dr. Sean Jimwright, who is an activist professor from SF State. And what he said is, it's not just simply blocked opportunities that are the effects of oppression, but the inability to dream beyond our current circumstance. And so what I really support folks in doing, and specifically women of color, LGBTQ identified folks, and other underrepresented identities. And I say that with so much passion because I only know 3 other Asian American coaches, and I know, I've met thousands, literally. I've been in the room with thousands of coaches, spiritual coaches, and I only know a few of us. And so it's important to me to claim that I serve women of color, that I serve queer identified people. And so what I support folks in doing is hearing from their intuition, because so often we have fears inhibiting us from listening to our guidance, and those fears are from the messages that we've received our whole lives, that our parents have received, that our grandparents have received, and that we've inherited, whether societally or through our upbringing. And so how to get clear from those limiting thought processes, listen to our intuition, listen to our higher selves, and not just listen to it, but do the thing that it's telling us to do. Who in here has ever been guided to do something and then you didn't do it? Yes. Who in here has been guided to do something and you did it and it was amazing? Yes. And so I'm really honored, really honored and humbled to do the work that I do in the world. When people listen, when we, myself included, when we listen to our higher selves, amazing, beautiful things happen. Not just for ourselves, but also for the communities that we're involved in and the communities that we serve.
Thank you, Adelina. That moved us, segued us into the next question, which is, what approaches and tools have you used with the people you all serve, and what has been effective?
It's really easy for me to work at Montessori because I inherited a really incredible service model. Goya, thank you for being my predecessor and for, taking on this huge job in SAC, and I just want you to know that she carved out space for me over breakfast to try to give me a handover and tell me what patisserie was all about, and I really hope I'm doing a good job. It's easy for me to be at patisserie because the model that was created by these incredible women, these leaders, 15 years ago is still fantastic. It's best practice. So it kind of splits into two, but then it's multifaceted. If you think about prevention education in the form of 3 programs, the Bangsere, a lot of young people can't actually afford to come to programs anymore because they need to make money. The Bangsere is a stipended internship where you basically pay young women to come and learn, right? And it's brilliant because not only do they get cash in their hand, but they come to the space again and again and again, and it forms a bond, and they come to the space and they realize it's theirs, and it's a second home, and they get to learn and they get to meet incredible people. The spot is a fantastic youth resource center. So many good people come through there. We have really good energy in that space. So you've got the paid internships, and it's also a cascading mentorship program. So they will learn what it means to be a peer mentor, how to speak to their peers. And then you've got Source, which is a really beautiful, very popular intergenerational cooking program. I want to shout out T-Boy, whose mother, Corneli, came through a couple of weeks ago and cooked for our young women and told her story of refuge and resettlement whilst cooking beautiful food and enabling our young women to really be in a space with an older woman who had very few barriers, was able to open her heart and let them in. I also want to mention Srey, self-reliant, empowered individuals. That follows the curriculum that was created many years ago. The curriculum was created by Jen Lee, and it still stands today. Of course, it evolves in different ways because now we have, social media and the impact that has on young minds and other devices like mobile phones and the rest of the internet. So it's evolved, but it's still really solid. The curriculum is rooted in Southeast Asian femininity, and that includes goddesses, it includes knowing language, knowing history, it includes understanding that knowledge is power. So that would be the prevention education. And even within them 3 programs, there's a lot of love and compassion and feminism and education. And then you have the other part of the service model, which is case management, one-to-one counseling, being able to make warm handoffs to other departments within Asian Health Services and outside. And that includes being able to help a young woman navigate the criminal justice system. It includes helping her understand that the criminal justice system is not made for her. It's not made to provide justice to young brown women. So then being able to talk about a parallel justice or self-defense. So the prevention education and the one-to-one case management, amongst other things, is really the core of patisserie. So it's very easy to slip into, my predecessor's shoes and just pick up the mantle and can carry on and make it deeper and stronger and connect with a lot of peripheral organizations, a lot of grassroots organizations. And it's also incredibly empowering for myself to be in that space and to come across really incredible men who reject toxic masculinity. Men like Mike Tran, men like Eddie Zane, all of the Asian Prisoner Support Committee men that come through and provide a really good example for our young men and our young women. So I'm sorry to sound smug, but it's been an easy couple of years.
Yeah. It's impressive how culturally responsive and specific your services are. Melissa, can you share some about your work?
Sure. So I think, for this question, I was speaking from the perspective of Asian Women's Home, which is our program that works with survivors of domestic violence and human trafficking. So, we throw around a lot of words like survivor-centered, trauma-informed, responsive. It's really about unpacking what all those words mean, right, and how they kind of play out in the work that we do. So I think that for the domestic violence movement, there was this kind of trauma-informed wave, maybe in the last 5 years, which we learned from mental health, actually. It really was about an understanding that survivors of domestic violence and human trafficking are ultimately survivors of trauma. Oftentimes complex trauma that is ongoing, repetitive, cumulative, has deep effects on the physical, emotional, mental health of survivors and their families and their community that is witnessing, that is bystander. So I think knowing that, our service has changed a lot. We became very much aware of things like trauma triggers. Back in the old days of domestic violence shelters, I'm pleased to say it's no longer true, but there would be things like curfews, right? And it was positioned as for the safety of the survivor and the family. Please come back by 9 p.m., with your kids, because we want to make sure that you're safe. Who gets curfews, usually? Children. Yeah. So really kind of speaking to the unintentional harm that I think sometimes the service providers can cause and those unintended consequences. But suffice to say, thanks to this new understanding of trauma-informed, a lot of things have changed, right? And we really do have that deep understanding of what it means to welcome a survivor and their family into our shelters, into our offices, and how to create kind of a very welcoming and very safe environment.
What's one tangible way that you would make a client feel welcome?
Sure. So, again, a lot of comparisons with the old days. There are no more curfews. There are no more rules. Rules were huge, right? Especially when you have a communal shelter. A lot of families and individuals living together as adults. And really just having to interact, and then, kids having to interact and conflicts occur, and just kind of how that was managed. So there are no more rules. There are no more potential exits because of X, Y, or Z. When a survivor comes into our shelter, I think that it's very much about letting them adjust, right? Those first few days. I think in the past it might be like, okay, we got to get started. There are a lot of things that need to get done. X, Y, and Z. Here's your goal-setting plan. Here's your intake. Let's get all this stuff done. And we just don't do the work that way anymore. There's a lot of space. There's a lot more space. There's more spaciousness, and really just a very deep understanding of letting people relax and be free, and really kind of lead the way in terms of how they want to approach their situation and the rest of their lives. I think another thing in the DP movement that domestic violence, apologies for acronyms, that we've really tried to push forward is that it's very much a survivor's choice what path they want to take. I think that, unfortunately, as I think we've all seen very clearly recently, this is still very much a world that blames victims and survivors, right? Unfortunately. And another realization we had at a certain point was that we don't want to be perpetuating that system. We do not want to be the abusers or the oppressors. And so what that includes is that really we are about presenting options and letting the survivor take the lead. It can be really hard at times, right? I support people as advocates, those of you who are bystanders, who are supporting survivors in your own lives, right? I think, for example, I think a really common reaction to an abusive situation is, well, why didn't you leave, right? Especially when we're standing there and kind of presenting all of the options, and yet somehow someone is still in that situation. Or maybe it's a Something that happens often with our work is the legal system, right? Which, we know, I think, we know about criminalization, we know about the complexities of the legal system, and many of our communities don't want to engage, right? So for example, a survivor we work with, oftentimes the idea of a restraining order, folks will go back and forth 8 times deciding whether to do that, and even that decision alone is so complex, right? A very commonly cited statistic, it takes 8 times for a survivor to leave an abusive relationship, right? And there are, again, so many reasons why we need to come back. But suffice to say, I think really what we're about in terms of supporting survivors, in terms of promoting health, wellness, and healing is really just being survivor-led. Yeah.
Thank you. So it sounds like it's less punitive, more, like you say, survivor-led, and just very compassionate. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. In answering this question, what came to mind was there's so many different healing, tangible things that I can talk about. So I sat down and meditated on the top 5 that I thought would serve you today. So the first one is to really trust that you have all that you need inside of you and inside of your community. So often we're told that we're broken, we have this diagnosis, we have something wrong with us. And so really coming from this place of there's nothing wrong with me, I'm already whole. And then knowing that the support that you need is inside of your community, whether that's inside of your family, if you have a spiritual place that you go to, a church, or your workspace, whatever. The universe, God, your higher self, puts you in the situation so that all that you need is right there. So an example of that is I was taking a herbal healing class, a Filipino one, and it was amazing to learn that the fruits that are indigenous to the Philippines also helps you not get sunburns. That's amazing, right? Like, that makes sense. And so in that same way, we are put in situations, we are surrounded by people who are there to support you, and you're there to support them. And so look within, and then not just within yourself, but within your community for any support that you need. The second is to create a vision of well-being. So what does it look like? And clearly define, what does it look like for you to be in your full, vibrant health? And I also want to just put a little note here. Don't say, I'm so grateful to be less overweight, or less, to have more energy than I used to, or to have less anxiety, whatever it is that you have in your mind that you want. You don't want to say less of what it is, you want to just speak what you would love. I'm so happy and grateful to be in my perfect right body and feel strong and beautiful. I'm so grateful to come home and feel at peace. What do you feel in place of the anxiety? What do you feel in place of the depression? Okay. The third is meditate on that vision. You didn't come up with that vision even though you think you did. You were called to that vision. So meditate on that vision. And somebody asked me today, what does meditate really mean? Simply say, and this is not mine, but I breathe in, knowing I am breathing in. I breathe out, knowing I am breathing out. Simply doing that for a minute, 30 seconds, that's meditating, y'all. We can do that right now, and y'all can say, hey, I meditated, right? Sometimes you're like, oh, I don't want to meditate, I don't have time for that. It can be 10 seconds. So 10 seconds of bringing to mind your vision of your health. And then asking your higher self, what step can I do today in the direction of that vision? Because you have all the answers inside of you. Number 4, in the work that I've been so blessed to do, what I've learned is that in unraveling the trauma that we've experienced, in unlayering ourselves into our highest healthy selves, so many of the folks that I've served have felt called to go to their homeland, to their ancestral homeland. Even if they themselves weren't born there, maybe their parents weren't even born there, maybe their grandparents came over, or way back, right? Came here way back. When you step on your ancestral land, healing takes place. simply by stepping on the land. And so go home to your ancestral land. It's calling you. And then the fifth, honestly, I couldn't really do it in 5, so in your bags, I gave a little card for you to receive 3 other gifts that I have, and you're welcome to just fill that out, and I have a little table, but it was hard for me to really succinctly do it, and so there's meditations in there that you can take. There's also a workbook that I do want to talk about this. It's a workbook of how to heal and survive as a person of color working in white spaces. Right? We need to know how to do that because we're working in white spaces a lot of the time, and we need to be there because we need to change things. Right? But we don't need to be there and feel re-traumatized. We don't need to be there and feel alone. So, thank you.
Thanks, Adelina. Yes, sure, clap it up for that.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
There was another
Yes.
point on healing that I really wanted to
Sure.
articulate. I was at Eastside Arts last night. And we had a conversation with Peps, who works over there, and he made a really important comment. And he said, you know, a lot of the times we have these healing workshops or healing spaces, and sometimes without action, it kind of just sits there, as opposed to having longevity or feeling dynamic. So we were talking about how having an action connected to healing can be really beautiful, really dynamic. And I just wanted to make everyone aware of an action that Banti Siray is part of, and actually Asian Health Services as an organization. And it's an action against the public charge, so in opposition to this public charge. And not to answer your next question around why I do this work, but I don't like bullies, and you know, it's not a coincidence that I'm a self-defense instructor, and it's not a coincidence that I work at Banti Siray. I don't like bullies, and I feel like the administration is being very bullying, especially with its continuation of anti-immigration policies. So the public charge is the latest one, and when I think about the young women that I work with, and then I think about the young men as well in the space, right now we're all being rallied around to really think about the public charge, how it is bullying to our community and our families, and what we can do to fight back. And that is definitely part of the healing that I think we try to bring to our young people. So, you know, I would like to just show you this postcard. I have 100 with me, and I want to give these postcards out to all of you, and all you have to do on the back is write your name, your first name, your last name, and if you feel compelled, a very basic comment in the box. If you could complete this, then you'll be part of the action that we're really trying to oppose. It's incredibly important. I'm not going to leave this building until I get all of them back. And that's said with absolute compassion and love. I really would love for everyone to do this today. I will also give you an infograph if you want to take information away, and maybe ask 5 people that you know to do exactly the same thing. We need as many comments as possible within the next 4 weeks. The deadline is December the 10th, but our deadline is much earlier because we need to put them all into a global portal. So I'll give everybody an infograph so you're completely schooled up in being able to explain this to other people. And then if you do that, I will give everyone a really fashionable band for your wrist, and it says One Nation, and it's against the public charge. So this is the kind of action that Banti Siray is part of, including healing spaces where there's like Reiki or ceremony or ritual, but the action is really crucial. Thank you.
Yeah. So having the action as part of your leadership. And our final question is, how did you all become a community leader?
I don't like bullies. I come from a poor Muslim Pakistani family that moved to Liverpool. I was raised, you know, under the Toxic riots, and just became politicized because of my family. and actually heard about Oakland when I was about 12 years old, and then fell in love with the Black Panther Party. So it's very beautiful to be here now, you know, and to be able to be part of this incredible tapestry, this beautiful city that is always on the vanguard of resistance and always chooses to fight rather than just be passive. And then I kind of rose up in London amongst a very clear feminist abolitionist movement, always working with the most vulnerable and most marginalized. And then, you know, was able to have the opportunity to do that in other countries. And it's, you know, the more things change, the more they stay the same. It's always the same variables, and it's always the same people being bullied, and the bullies always look the same too. So I'm happy to fight with my hands and my mind, and I really want to pass that down to the young women and the young men that I come across.
Thank you. We've got 3 minutes left, so Melissa and Adelina, can you please describe your leadership journey?
So I think for me, I come from the perspective that the personal is political, right? So I work for an API specific program that works against gender-based violence. And I think, you know, it's a lot of different things. So it's that, it's kind of this disbelief that even this issue of gender-based violence is still occurring, right? I know it's been occurring probably for as long as Homo sapiens has existed, but it still boggles my mind. It still boggles my mind, and I believe that we can solve it. I believe we can solve it together. I'm one of those optimists that thinks we can solve it in our lifetime, because we have to. We have not unlocked the potential of half of our population. You know, I think the other piece in terms of this work and this movement that we're building, not just, you know, working against gender-based violence, but now across many other movements, especially during this time, is just the amazing people, and especially the amazing women who are dedicating their lives, you know, in our program to helping other women and men, right? I think that's, you know, to go on a tangent, that's another issue we have to talk about, how to engage men and boys in this movement. Yeah, I think that's really it for me. And then, of course, you know, all of the amazing, strong, wonderful women leaders. I believe you'll be hearing, for example, I'm going to call her out, Becky Masaki, later, you know, who's one of the goddesses and one of the great leaders of this work. You know, just being able to work with people like that and to learn from people like that.
Thanks.
You know, when I thought about this question, the first thing that came to mind is, wait, am I a leader? And I heard somebody on the other panel saying that. And so what came to mind that felt better fitting for me was a server. What brought me to become a server? And then I was like, wait, but leaders are servers. So maybe I am a leader, right? And so what brought me to serve, though, was that I grew up in a family of domestic violence. And so at a very young age, I learned that the world needed to change. My home needed to change for sure, but the world that I was in that allowed that type of violence to occur needed to change. And so that led me into becoming a social worker, and as important as that work is, and as valuable as that work is, I found myself in that work feeling called to do something else, which was to go beyond supporting people into coping and really support folks into thriving. And so I've, you know, combined the social work, the coaching, and I also have a long lineage of spiritual healing that's been passed down in my family. And so really embracing that, and knowing that by embracing that, that's a form of resistance, right? When we embrace our indigenous gifts, we're resisting what they've tried to pull from us for hundreds of years.
Well, thank you all. Our panel was a bit abridged because of it, that we wanted to stay on time with the agenda. But our panelists will be available for question and answer. And why don't we just have folks meet at the vendor area so they'll be more accessible to everyone on this floor. Please continue these discussions on health and wellness and take action, as folks were saying. Move beyond the vision. First we must envision it, but then we must become it. So thank you so much for your time today.
So just as we kind of transition out, I want us to give another round of applause. The thing is that these folks work on really, and the folks in the audience, work on really difficult issues as you've heard them highlight, right? And one of the reasons we came up with this panel was, again, this issue of intersectionality. It's not only that we sit and exist at the intersections of multiple marginalities, we're also trying to address violence at multiple levels. So we're talking about dealing with it within, healing from within. We're talking about addressing the institutions, and we're talking about addressing the structures of violence that impact us. And I think our experts have given you just a hint of what's happening in our communities, a hint to some of the issues that have gone a little bit neglected. And they've triggered some really, I think people are impacted by what you're saying. So they're going to be available throughout for maybe the next hour or so. So please come and talk to them. There's the vendors, there's the wellness area. If you do have questions, you can give them to me, and then we'll figure out a way to get the answers going. But I thank you for being patient and being attentive to our. So thank you again.